or stuff. We're going to explore a totally different kind of wealth. We're going to look at the idea that the greatest profit you can ever make isn't in your bank account, it's in your state of mind. So let's just start with a huge question. One we all kind of wrestle with at some point. What does true success actually look like? I mean, really? Is it the corner office, the flashy car, or is it something deeper, something that actually lasts? This slide just nails the choice we face all the time. Over on the left, you've got this treasure chest, but it's getting battered by a storm. Inner world that's always chasing the next big thing, more money, more success, more stuff. We're going to explore a totally different kind of wealth. We're going to look at the idea that the greatest profit you can ever make isn't in your bank account, it's in your state of mind. So let's just start with a huge question. One we all kind of wrestle with at some point. What does true success actually look like? I mean, really? Is it the corner office, the flashy car, or is it something deeper, something that actually lasts? This slide just nails the choice we face all the time. Over on the left, you've got this treasure chest, but it's getting battered by a storm. That's your great wealth with turmoil. Then, on the right, you have a simple little plant, just quietly thriving in the calm. So which one is the better bargain, really? And that question right there gets us to the heart of our explainer. Peace of mind. It sounds nice, right? But it's not about a life with zero problems, because let's be real, that's impossible. It's about building an inner calm that lets you handle all of life's challenges with resilience, with wisdom, and with grace. It's kind of like your personal anchor in the middle of a storm. So where do we even begin with this? Well, Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, gave us a super powerful starting point. Begin with the end in mind. What that really means is making sure that your actions today actually line up with your deepest values. When those two things are in sync, you're on a direct path to fulfillment and peace. Okay, so building on that idea, let's move on. The real foundation for peace isn't something external. It's built inside our own heads. To find that tranquility, we first have to master our inner world. This, right here, is the real battleground. Before you can find peace in your circumstances, you have got to find it between your own ears. Every single feeling, whether it's anxiety or calm, it all starts right here, with a single thought. This idea from James Allen just gets right to the heart of it. He's arguing that we are literally the architects of our own character, and we build it with our thoughts. So if Covey's principle helps us pick the destination, Allen gives us the car to get there. And by choosing to focus on thoughts of purpose and gratitude, we build an inner peace that is absolutely unshakable. And, this is not a new idea. This ancient wisdom from Isaiah says the exact same thing. A steadfast mind, one that's disciplined and focused, just like Allen described, is the key to what it calls perfect peace. It's all about finding that mental and spiritual stability by anchoring our thoughts. This all reminds me of that amazing story from Robin Sharma's book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's about this super successful lawyer who has every single thing you could imagine, all the markers of success, but inside he feels completely empty. So he makes this wild decision. He just gives it all up. And his journey leads him to this really powerful discovery. The key to the inner peace he was looking for wasn't about getting more, it was about letting go. So what does letting go actually mean? It's not about being apathetic or just giving up. No way. It is the very intentional act of releasing the anxiety that we get from trying to control things that are, frankly, just not in our control. It's the practical, real-world application of having a steadfast mind. And here's how you can actually do it. Step 1, accept that uncertainty is just a non-negotiable part of being alive. Step 2, shift all of your energy onto the one thing you can control, your own actions and your own responses. And 3, build some kind of daily practice, maybe it's journaling or meditation, to consciously let go of the day's stress. So now that we've looked inward, let's kind of flip the script. Because paradoxically, once you get your in so hard, this idea is pretty profound. When we can shift from a me-first mindset to what Stephen Covey called a win-win mindset, and you're genuinely trying to lift others up, it's amazing how your own anxieties just seem to fade into the background. And this isn't some huge abstract thing. You can start applying this today. Practice small, daily acts of kindness. Make the active decision to let go of old grudges. That frees up so much emotional space. And find ways, even little ones, to do work that you know helps somebody else. That is a powerful, powerful source of fulfillment. This piece of wisdom from Proverbs brings us right back to where we started. It contrasts a simple life, one that's grounded in strong values, with a life of great wealth that's just full of turmoil. The message is crystal clear. The quality of our inner life is so much more valuable than the quantity of our possessions. Just like the monk in the story found out, simplifying your life isn't about deprivation. It's about liberation. When you strip away all the non-essentials from your life and from your mind, what's left is clarity, focus, and a really deep sense of contentment. All right, so let's pull all these different threads together and talk about what your true net worth really is. What actually holds its value for an entire lifetime? And this leads us to a really critical truth. If your achievements, your wealth, and your success don't bring you inner serenity, then they are an illusion. It's a hollow victory, and it's just not going to sustain you in the long run. Let's end with this one final thought from James Allen. He calls calmness of mind one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. But listen to his wording. It is the result of effort. See, peace isn't something that just happens to you. It's a skill. It's something you cultivate through patience and self-control. It's a treasure that you earn. And that's really what it all comes down to. When you measure your life, don't just count the dollars. Count the moments of quiet. Count the resilience you showed in the face of a challenge. Count the contentment in your heart. That is the greatest profit you will ever know.
Today with just a single word.
Okay.
It's a word that
That's always
sit up a
chasing the
little
next
straighter,
big.
maybe grab a pen or, I don't know, compulsively check their banking app.
Oh, yeah, the banking app for sure.
Exactly. That word is profit.
It's a loaded word.
It is, right?
Hmm.
Immediately, you're thinking bottom lines, quarterly returns, ROI, the stock market.
Well, yeah.
We are so conditioned to think of profit as strictly financial. It's a numbers game. And if the numbers are up, we're winning.
Which makes sense. I mean, that is how the world generally keeps score. If you want to know how a business is doing, you look at the P&L statement.
Exactly. But today, we're kind of flipping that scoreboard over. We've got this really interesting stack of sources today. We're looking at modern productivity giants, a fictional fable about a lawyer.
A very stressed out lawyer.
Right, and some Victorian philosophy, and even ancient biblical wisdom. And the weird thing is, they all seem to argue that we have been calculating profit completely wrong.
It's a fascinating pivot. The central premise of everything we're looking at today, from Stephen Covey all the way to the book of Isaiah, is that in a world that is absolutely obsessed with material wealth and power, the greatest profit isn't money.
Okay, what is it?
It's peace of mind.
Right. Which, to be honest, that sounds a little bit like something you'd see on a cat poster in a dentist's office.
Yeah.
Peace is the greatest profit.
I know. It sounds nice.
It sounds nice, but is it practical? Because when I first read through this stack, my first thought was, okay, sounds very zen, but I have a mortgage.
That is the natural reaction. I think we tend to view peace as a luxury item, something you get to have after you've made the money, after you've retired to the beach house. But as we dug into these texts, especially Covey and James Allen, it became clear they aren't treating peace as a luxury. They're treating it as a survival strategy.
A survival strategy.
Absolutely. If you are operating at a massive emotional loss, high anxiety, high stress, low clarity, you eventually go bankrupt.
Just like a business.
Just like a business.
That's a good setup. So, okay, let's look at the sources. We're synthesizing Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is usually on the business shelf.
Right.
Robin Sharma's The Monk, who sold his Ferrari. James Allen's classic As a Man Thinketh. And we're grounding a lot of this in biblical wisdom.
It's an eclectic mix. You don't usually see corporate productivity consultants sitting at the same table as ancient prophets.
No, you really don't.
Yeah.
But the overlap is surprising. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore why success without serenity is basically just a scam we pull on ourselves. I want to get into the mechanics of this because I don't want just the what, I want the how.
And the how is where it gets difficult, because the first thing these sources tell us is that peace is not passive.
Right.
And that's the biggest misconception, I think. People think peace is the absence of trouble. You know, when the inbox is empty, the kids are asleep, the house is clean, then I'll have peace.
Yeah, that magical day that never comes.
Exactly. But these sources argue that peace is an active project. It's something you build, not something you just wait around for.
Okay, so let's unpack that active project idea.
Oh.
Because we live in a culture of chasing. It's the I'll be happy when syndrome.
Oh,
I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I buy the Tesla. But the source material, it identifies this obsession with external success as the primary enemy.
It's the problem of misaligned metrics. The source material, it defines true success as attaining inner tranquility. And to be clear, because I think this is where people can tune out inner tranquility, doesn't mean checking out of reality.
It's not about moving to a cave and meditating all day.
No,
Yep.
not at all.
Yeah.
It's about navigating the storm. It's about stability.
Okay.
And this brings us right to Stephen Covey. Most people know the 7 Habits as a productivity Bible,
For sure.
but the sources, they highlight a specific aspect of Covey. Begin with the end in mind.
And I think most people hear that and interpret it as like, visualize your project goal.
Mhm.
You know, imagine the house is built before you even lay the first brick.
Correct. But Covey goes so much deeper. He asks you to visualize the end of your life. He talks about the eulogy virtues versus the resume virtues.
Oof, this is the heavy stuff.
It is. Resume virtues are things like increase quarterly earnings by 15% or managed a team of 50.
That stuff you put on LinkedIn.
Exactly, the LinkedIn stuff. But eulogy virtues was a kind father, was a person of integrity, brought peace to chaotic situations. And Covey's point is that we spend all our time chasing the resume virtues.
Right.
But we only really care about the eulogy virtues when it actually matters.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here. In the thick of the work week, the resume virtues are what pay the bills. It's hard to focus on your eulogy when you have a boss breathing down your neck about a deadline. Does Covey address that tension?
He does, and he uses this great metaphor of the clock and the compass.
The clock and the compass.
The clock represents our appointments, our schedules, all the urgent activities. The compass, on the other hand, represents our direction, our values, our conscience. And the problem, Covey argues, is that most of us are managed by the clock, not led by the compass.
We're climbing the ladder very, very efficiently,
Super efficiently.
but the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall.
Exactly. And that misalignment, that creates this constant hum of anxiety. You're stressed because deep down, you know you're neglecting what actually matters to you. Peace comes when the clock and the compass are finally aligned.
So practically speaking, that means making decisions that might hurt the resume in the short term, but help the eulogy in the long term.
Sometimes, yeah. Or it simply means bringing your values into the workplace. If your value is integrity, you don't cut corners, even if it's faster. And that creates peace because you aren't hiding anything. You aren't worried about being found out.
It's the difference between building on sand versus building on bedrock.
That's the perfect analogy. And that foundation leads us directly to the mechanism of how we actually build this peace. Because you can have the right values, but if your head is a mess, you're still going to be miserable.
And this is where James Allen enters the chat with, "As a man thinketh." This book is over 100 years old, but honestly, it feels like it was written for the Twitter age.
It really does. Allen's core thesis is this extreme personal responsibility for your mental state. He says, and I'm quoting here, "A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts."
Literally what he thinks. I mean, that's actually kind of terrifying if you're someone who tends to spiral or catastrophize.
Right.
If I have an anxious thought, does that mean I'm an anxious person?
Well, Allen uses this beautiful metaphor of the garden. He says the mind is like a garden. It can be intelligently cultivated or it can be allowed to run wild. But, and this is the key part, whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth.
So weeds grow automatically. You don't have to plant them.
Exactly. If you don't intentionally plant useful seeds, things like purpose, gratitude, calmness, then weeds like fear, resentment, worry will just fall in and grow in abundance. You don't have to try to be anxious. You just have to do nothing.
Wow. That's a powerful distinction. So peace requires cultivation. Anxiety is just the default setting of a neglected mind.
Precisely. And this is where that battleground concept comes in. The sources describe the mind not as a playground, but as a battleground. You have to stand guard at the gate of your mind.
And this connects so beautifully to the biblical wisdom in our stack. There's this quote from Isaiah 26.3.
Yes. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you.
Steadfast. I want to drill down on that word for a second because it sounds rigid. It sounds hard.
It implies effort, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A steadfast mind isn't a mind that never wanders. It's a mind that is constantly brought back to center.
Okay.
Think of it like a ship in a storm. The waves, the news, the market, the drama are all trying to turn the ship. Being steadfast just means holding the wheel.
So in a modern context, a steadfast mind is one that doesn't get hijacked by every notification or every piece of bad news.
Right. It's about focus. If your mind is steadfast on things that are true and unchangeable, like your faith or those Covey-style core values, you get what the text calls perfect peace. But if your mind is steadfast on the stock market or your social media engagement,
You get anxiety.
you get anxiety
Yeah.
because those things fluctuate. You're anchoring your emotional state to a moving target.
And when you anchor to a moving target, you get motion sickness.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Motion sickness of the soul.
Huh. Yeah. And that actually segues perfectly into our next theme, which is all about control. Because if we're honest, a lot of our lack of peace comes from being total control freaks.
We want to script the world.
We do. And we have to talk about Robin Sharma here and the monk who sold his Ferrari. Now, we know the premise, high-powered lawyer, has a heart attack, sells everything, goes to India. But let's look at why Julian Mantle, the main character, was so miserable despite having it all.
Julian Mantle is the archetype of the control illusion. He thought that if he could just win every case, make more money, and buy more things, he would finally feel secure.
Right.
But the source material argues that anxiety is essentially the friction caused by trying to force outcomes you don't have influence over.
We try to script other people's behavior, or we try to script the economy, and when the script goes off the rails, we panic.
Exactly. The insight here is the distinction between your circle of concern and your circle of influence.
Okay, but I struggle with this one. Because letting go often sounds like passivity to me. It sounds like giving up. If I just let go of my concern about my job performance, I'm going to get fired.
That's a crucial nuance. Sharma and Covey aren't saying don't care. They're saying don't attach your peace to the outcome.
Right.
You can control your effort. You can control your preparation. You can control your integrity.
But you can't control the result.
You cannot control the result. So the lawyer, Julian Mantle, he finds peace not because he stopped working, but because he stopped trying to play God with the results.
He learned to govern his own mind, not the world.
In a sense, yes. One of the techniques mentioned in the book is called the heart of the rose. It's basically a concentration exercise. Just staring at a rose for minutes on end to train the mind to focus on one thing.
Which sounds incredibly boring.
It sounds excruciating to a modern mind, but that's the point. We have lost the ability to command our own attention. If you can't tell your mind what to think about, you're basically a slave to whatever distraction walks in the room.
So the practical step here isn't necessarily staring at a flower, but it's practicing the ability to say stop to a spiraling thought.
Yes, it's recognizing, hey, this is out of my control, and then physically, mentally shifting your focus back to what is within your jurisdiction, your actions, your response.
I want to pivot to something that I found really counterintuitive in the research.
Yeah.
We usually think of peace as something we get for ourselves. It's my peace, my quiet time, my meditation.
Right.
But the sources argue that one of the fastest paths to peace is actually other people.
This is the paradox of service, and it's present in almost every single wisdom tradition.
But wait, if I'm stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out, the last thing I want to do is help someone else. That feels like just adding another task to my to-do list. How does service generate peace? Isn't that just a recipe for more exhaustion?
It depends on the motivation. If you're doing it to be seen or for validation, yes, it's exhausting. But here's the logic. Anxiety is almost always self-referential.
What do you mean by that?
When you are anxious, your world shrinks down. It becomes about my problem, my fear, my reputation. You are trapped in this tiny feedback loop of me. Service breaks the loop.
It forces the camera to point outward.
Exactly. Covey talks about the win-win mindset. If you view life as a competition, I have to win, which means you have to lose, you are constantly on guard. You're defensive. That is a high cortisol lifestyle. But if you aim to uplift others, you enter a state of cooperation. You can put your shield down.
There's a biblical context for this too, right?
Philippians 2.3. In humility, value others above yourselves.
That's a hard sell in this day and age. Value others above myself. That sounds like a doormat strategy.
It sounds like it, but look at the second half of the thought. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. The text argues that vain conceit, trying to prop up your ego, trying to look important, is incredibly high maintenance.
High maintenance. That's an interesting way to put it.
Think about how much energy you spend trying to manage how people perceive you, trying to look smart, successful, cool. It's exhausting. Humility is low maintenance. If you don't have to defend a false image of yourself, you have so much more energy for peace.
So valuing others isn't about degrading yourself. It's about freeing yourself from the full-time job of being the center of the universe.
Precisely. It's ego reduction. And this connects directly to the final piece of the puzzle, simplicity.
Right. We talked about ego reduction, which is internal clutter. Now let's talk about external clutter. We mentioned Julian Mantle selling his Ferrari. Why is there such a strong link in these sources between owning less stuff and having more peace?
Because every possession is a mental contract.
A mental contract.
When you buy the Ferrari or the big house or the boat, you aren't just buying the object. You're buying the maintenance, the insurance, the fear of scratching it, the need to protect it.
You own it, but it kind of own you back.
Exactly. The sources argue that complexity breeds anxiety. Simplicity breeds clarity. There's a verse from Proverbs 15.1 sings, "Better a little with the fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil."
Great wealth with turmoil. I feel like we see that headline every single day.
We do. We see people who have won the game of capitalism but are completely bankrupt emotionally. They have the profit, but they also have the turmoil.
So this brings us all the way back to where we started, the definition of profit.
It's a whole ecosystem. You have the right thinking from James Allen weeding the garden. You have the surrender from Sharma, knowing what you can and can't control. And you have the service from the Bible and Covey, breaking that ego loop.
It seems like the core argument here is that the ultimate net worth isn't financial at all.
The argument is that at the end of your life, you cannot take the bank account with you. But the state of your soul, your character, your inner peace, that is the only thing that is truly yours. Success without serenity is an illusion.
And I think it's important to say this is not easy.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for 15 minutes, but doing it is the work of a lifetime.
Oh, absolutely. James Allen has this great quote we touched on. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom, but he continues. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control.
Long and patient effort.
Yeah.
So no hacks, no quick fixes.
No hacks. You don't get peace by downloading a meditation app and using it once. You get it through the discipline of guarding your thoughts day after day after day.
It's work, but the sources argue it's the most profitable work you can possibly do.
Because if you have billions in the bank, but you cannot sleep at night because your mind is a war zone, you are poor. But if you have enough and you have a steadfast mind, you are rich.
So let's land the plane. What does this mean for you, our listener, right now? Because we always want to leave you with something to actually do.
I think we need to reiterate that peace is a business decision. You have to fight for it. You have to protect your profit margin.
I love that framing. So here is our challenge for you to carry with you today. We want you to visualize your peace of mind as a business. Treat it like a corporation.
Run an audit. If you looked at your Peace P&L statement today, are you operating at a profit or a loss?
And take it one step further. Look at your expenses. What is one expense you are currently paying? Maybe it's a grudge you're holding against a coworker. Maybe it's the hour you spend doom scrolling before bed. Maybe it's worrying about a political situation you have zero control over.
That is an expense. It is actively costing you peace.
So what is one expense you can cut right now to increase your profit margin?
Cut the expense. Keep the profit.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. And here's to your wealth, your true wealth.
Take care.